What's up, guys? And we are back for the final 9 holes of the first round for the 2017 AM National Championships. So hole 10 is 370 feet. It is a par 3. And you basically got 2 shots here. You can throw a big turnover shot that's going to creep up the hill. You're going to have to throw it pretty high. Or if you got a super smash sidearm, then you can go with that as well. I mean, you could maybe throw a roller here, but you don't really have a good line, and you have to get through some long grass, so that's not really an option. Elijah does get up there a pretty good ways. He's going to have a long putt from where the old pin placement's at, pretty much. Ben goes with the sidearm there. Ends up a little short, but it should be a pretty easy 3 for him. And Tim does the same. He goes a little longer, and it should be a pretty routine 3 for him as well. Ben, he somehow leaves that a little short. I think there was wind that just kind of stalled it out, so he's going to have a tricky putt for his 3. Elijah gets up there pretty easily for his as well. And Tim here almost throws it in for 2, but an easy 3 for him nonetheless. And there's Ben kind of hiding in those bushes there and just comes up a little short. So he's going to be taking a 4 on this hole. Elijah tapping in for his 3, and Tim going to be doing the same here as well. So after that hole, we got Elijah at 2 over, Timothy at 3 over, and Ben with 5 over par. Hole 11 is 318 feet uphill, and it's pretty straightforward. You just want to throw something higher up. You want to throw something a little less stable because you are going up this hill. And that is one of the tricks, is understable uphill. Because if you were thinking of this as a flat hole, you're going to be throwing the disc way up in the air. So to get more distance, you want to throw something a little less stable. Elijah goes a little more left than he wants to, but he should have a pretty wide open shot for his 3, maybe a look at 2. Tim gets up there a good ways. He's probably circle's edge. He is so far the closest for the birdie as Ben yanks his over to the left. And this one just slowly floats over there. And I thought this one was going to be in, but he's right underneath the basket. Elijah gets his a little high, but he is also right there for his tap-in range. And Tim is just inside the circle, right by that tree I was talking about for his 2. And nails that thing dead center. That's a great putt. Any 2 on this course is great, because you're going to have a ton of par 4s, so you're going to get a lot of birdie 3s. There are not too many birdie 2s out here. And hole 12 is 534 feet. It is a par 3, and it is very downhill, so it's very reachable to get an easy 3 on this hole. You can either throw a big sidearm, or you can play it kind of how hole 1 plays. You can throw a mid-range or even a fairway driver flat and let the gravity kind of pull the disc right, because there is the tree in the middle of the fairway. You can see there that Tim kind of hit and trickled down from. If you want to be on the other side of that, as Elijah's kind of showing you here, he's getting on the other side of it. It is a little high, so he's got a lot of green to contend with, and it does kind of smack him down. But that's pretty much the line that you want to throw. This hole is very hard to park, if not have a putt at, but it is possible. To me, it's not really a tweener hole. It's just a tough par 3. And Ben hyzers out a little early there. Here's Tim with his shot. He's got 2 alleys. He's either got this really tight window that he went for, or the big wide open one on the left. Not too sure why he tried going through the gap. I mean, it would have been a really cool shot, but I think the smarter play could have been the outside of the gap shot, just on a more of a hyzer. Ben gets up there well within the circle for his 3. And back over to Tim. He puts it right underneath the bucket to have a tap-in bogey. And Elijah with the best drive of the group also almost throws this one in, but goes a little long, so he's going to have some work to do for his par. Ben tapping in there for his 3. And Timothy tapped out as everyone was getting out of Elijah's way while he was going to go putt, and he nails this putt from, that was about circle's edge. That was a great putt from Elijah there. And then on to hole 13, arguably one of the easier par 4s in my opinion. I do believe it is a par 4 hole because getting there off of the tee, even on top of the hill, if you can get it on top of the hill, that's a great drive. 2, you still have at least a 60-foot putt, if not more, depending on where you're at. So yeah, if you're like maybe Simon or Eagle, Garrett, Girthy, any one of those big dogs, you're going to be getting on top of the hill. But this hole is tricky because getting to the top of the hill isn't very far. It's just that uphill. So you gotta know your angles. You gotta know the height. If you can figure out that, you can get up this hill pretty easily. And Elijah showed you that. He's well up the fairway a little bit. Ben and Tim are a little shorter, but it's not unfeasible to get up and down from these spots in the circle. It's on the left side of this berm, kind of. So if you can get past the berm and a little left, you're going to be putting in the circle. Ben goes a little long with his sidearm, and Elijah's looking straight at this, and he basically shows you exactly how to play this hole. You don't need a big arm to get a birdie on this hole. You can get up on the hill, throw straight at it up over the ridge, and you're going to be putting for birdie if not parked.
Oh my God.
Ben with a great looking putt there. I thought that was in too. It was really cool to watch that go up and over, but with putts like that, it's hard to tell. When you're looking at it at a side view, you don't get to see if the putt's left or right. You just get to see the up and down and if it was chain high or not. So Elijah there with the great birdie 3. Timothy ended up in a weird spot. He had to throw a sidearm putt at it and just barely missed it. But we are on to hole 14. This is another hole that's reachable. It is downhill, so it's going to play a lot shorter than it is. It's about 370 feet, but you can throw, again, a mid-range or a fairway on this hole. You don't really want to go anything faster because you want it to fade in and not go very far after it enters the gap. So you're throwing past the spotter in the fairway, and then as soon as it enters that gap, you just want it fading left. And Elijah did a pretty good job showing you what to do. Ben, unfortunately, came up a little short. And then you got Tim, who kind of got the in-between Elijah and Ben. He did sneak through the tree that Ben got stuck here at. Ben's got a little work to do. He doesn't have much to work with, so he's got to lean out and throw this sidearm. And it was really, really hard to execute that. You could see more of it where I was at filming it than you could where his spot was actually at. So he's inside the circle, but it's still a longer putt than he would have liked. Timothy almost had a great putt there. That was one, I don't know how these putts aren't actually hitting any metal. Like, they look so good, and it wasn't working, unfortunately. Ben comes up short off the cage. As Elijah makes a great run for his birdie there, that's probably the 3rd or 4th putt this round where it looked great, and it just bounced right off that very top of the basket. So it's kind of hard to be mad at those, but it can be frustrating. But a couple pars aren't that bad out here on this course, no matter the hole. Ben with the only bogey 4 there. And unfortunately, there isn't a flyby footage for this hole. This is another par 4 that's about 700 feet or so. Maybe it's a little shorter. And it's a lightning bolt hole. So you want to do exactly what Elijah did. You can throw a big sidearm like these guys are here, or you can actually go big turnover and try to bite off a little more distance. It's not that risky as long as you just commit and execute the shot. Years past, it was much harder to do because there's a lot of Russian olive bushes everywhere. So if you weren't perfect off the tee, then you were kind of screwed and you had to be forced to pitch out. So the last 2 years since they cleared this out, it's been much easier to get more aggressive out here on this course. So Ben came up a little short off his drive, and then he kind of sawed it off for his second shot, unfortunately. But he's going to have a long uphill look. It's probably going to be a 50-foot, 60-foot putt, but it's probably going to play longer than that because the green on this hole is very, very uphill. And there's Elijah basically showing you how to do it. He just hyzered out a little too early on him. So he's going to have a long tester putt for his birdie. And Tim here, probably 60, 70 feet or so. Again, extremely uphill. Just gets it up and down. He's going to have a par. And Ben hiding out in the woods. He's got a couple windows, but they're pretty wide open. Just, again, looking to get up and down for 4. And then Elijah with the last chance for birdie on this hole. And you can see how uphill this is. He's just outside the circle and just off the front of the cage. And it looked like it was going to try to roll down the hill, but it did not. So everyone's going to be carding a 4 here. As everyone taps out, we're going to move on to the next hole. Everyone with a 4. You got Elijah 1 over, Tim 3 over, and Ben 6 over. And hole 16, probably one of the last holes that you could actually deuce out here. It's 356 feet. You got a couple ways you can attack this hole. It's a little more open. They did cut out some of the brush in the trees that were closer to the basket. So you can go straight at it. You can throw a sidearm flex shot, or you can go up and over it like Elijah was trying here. It just didn't go far enough. It's basically a big stall hyzer. That way so you can get up over everything and then it just stalls right towards the basket. But he's going to have a putt that's short. Just behind the trees a little bit. Tim went up the middle but didn't give it enough juice. So he's going to be just short of the circle as well. And Ben showing you the last line that I was talking about with that sidearm flex. And he misses everything. Gets through there with a great flexing shot. And he's going to be probably circle's edge off to the right looking for a birdie. And Tim just over the basket. Elijah here with a tricky looking putt. That another one of those putts where it looked like it could have just hyzered right into it, but just held on a little too long. And Ben there just over top of it, unfortunately. So everyone's, again, is going to be carding a par. Everyone taps in there. Scores stay the same. And move on to one of the longest holes on the course. It's slightly downhill, and then it finishes uphill. Hole 17 is 755 feet. And it is on top of this ridge up here. And there's nothing really in the way stopping you from doing anything crazy. There is OB to the right because there is a road there. But if you're throwing over there, that's a really bad shot. You basically just want to throw something stable at the third tire out there in the fairway. It's fairly easy to get to. If you come up short of it, that's not bad at all. Even where Elijah ended up near where hole 1 is at is still attackable at the pin. There are just a couple other spots that you want to avoid where Tim's going now. You got those 2 little ridges. If you end up in there, you have not the best footing. So he ends up short of it a little bit, so he'll be all right. Ben here throws something pretty overstable, look like, and it flexes out on him. But he's going to be a little more out of position. He's got some awkward footing. He's got a downhill run-up that you can't really see there. It kind of makes him throw into the ground, unfortunately. And then you got Elijah. It looks like a great shot. Wasn't really high enough, unfortunately. Hits the hill and then just rolls down. Probably one of the grossest rolls I've ever seen. Just really, really unfortunate. So he's either going to be throwing it in for birdie or just throwing up and down to get his par. And then Tim throws a great line on this, and again, it's just not quite high enough. You got to get it up over the hill to try to get on top of it up at the bucket, because putting uphill is really hard to do. And then Ben ended up in the toboggan sled run, so he had no run up there, so he threw a standstill, hits the top of the hill, so he's got to look for his par. And Elijah here almost throws it in for his birdie, but he ends up underneath the pin, so he's going to be carding a par as well. Tim just getting up and down for his 4. And then you got Ben here just inside the circle for his 4. And just right off the top of the cage, unfortunately. So he's going to be taking the lone 5, which is a bogey 5. Elijah tapping in for 4. Same with Tim. And we're going to be moving on to the very last hole for the first round. Again, Elijah at 1 over, Tim at 3 over, and Ben at 7 over. And 18, again, is just extremely uphill. It is only 315 feet, but it probably plays closer to almost a 400-foot shot. You do have a tight gap to hit with the 2 trees right off the edge of the fairway. So as long as you can avoid those and then throw it up high in the air, you'll be fine. It's really hard to get a 2 on a turnover. If you have a really big sidearm, that's more of the play. And on the other side of those posts is not actually OB, so you could actually just throw a safe shot with something stable and go on the other side, because you'll just have a clear shot to get up and down for 3, unless you're really trying to get that 2. So Elijah was a little inside. Tim was a little low. He didn't quite get the power on it, and Ben turned his over just a little bit. So all these guys, if they don't throw it in, they're pretty much getting up and down for their pars. So there's Tim for his second shot. He's underneath the pin. Same with Ben. Just a little short, but within like 10 to 15 feet or so. And Elijah wanted to give this run, but again, outside the circle and uphill adds easily 10 to 15, 20 feet on most putts. So all these guys are going to be carding par 3s. So finishing round 1, you have Elijah at 1 over, Tim at 3 over, and Ben at 7 over, which are fairly respectable rounds for Elijah and Tim. Ben, unfortunately, is not a very good round. 1 over at a 63. You can definitely make some improvements and attack the next 2 days to climb up into probably top 20, if not better. Same thing with Tim. He's only 2 strokes off of Elijah. And if they can put in 60 or better rounds, they are going to be jumping a lot of spots, because there are a lot of people out here that are going to probably mess up the next couple days. Again, like I said before, if you're not teeing off very well, if you don't know how to play the hills, it's much easier for you to score higher. And if you know how to play the hills, it's much easier for you to score better. You do obviously need to know how to putt, but you're going to get into more trouble if you're not playing the holes very well off the tee. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you for round 2 coverage.